Welcome to FX Signal Team. Today, we are going to start 9th chapter of Part 2. The main topic of this chapter is intraday trading, 1 hour and 4 hour chart time frames. Let's start. Most of this course has been focused on daily chart time frames, and for very good reason. The daily charts provide the best view of the market and offer the best or most reliable trading opportunities. I firmly believe this, as do most professional traders, and if you do a bit of research and study the charts for a while, you will arrive at the same conclusion. However, that does not mean that there are not opportunities on other time frames, because there certainly are sometimes. Thus, I wanted to devote a chapter to intraday trading, specifically the 1 hour and 4 hour charts, which are the only two intraday time frames that I trade, as you probably know. Any time frame under the 1 hour is just too noisy and haphazard. I strongly recommend you don't even look at these very low time frames. They will only confuse you and cause you to overtrade and lose money. There are two basic ways to think about intraday trading on the 1 hour and 4 hours charts. Trading the 1 hour and 4 hours charts in line with the daily chart trend. Trading the 1 hour and 4 hours charts from key daily chart levels. Let's take a look at some examples. Trading intraday charts in line with the daily chart trend. When trading the 4 hour or 1 hour charts, the first thing we need to do is look at the daily chart and figure out what it's doing. Essentially, we want to make sure that any intraday chart makes sense in the context of the daily chart conditions and price action. So, if the daily chart is in a strong downtrend, it only makes sense to look for sell signal on the 1 hour or 4 hour chart. If the daily chart was in an uptrend, we would obviously want to look only for buy signals. So, we first determine our bias by looking at the daily chart. Once we have a clear bias on a market, either bullish, bearish or neutral, we can then drill down to the 4 hour or 1 hour and look for price action entry signals. In the chart below, we can see that a downtrend was in place on the daily gold time frame. This gave us a clear bearish bias to work from. Note the breakout on the far right of the chart, when price broke down from the long triangle-like consolidation pattern it was in. This will be the context of the 1 hour signal on the chart that follows. The 1 hour chart time frame below shows us what was happening on the 1 hour chart during the strong breakout from the consolidation we discussed above. You already had your bearish bias from the analyzing the daily chart above, and the strong breakout just mentioned was already underway when this 1 hour pin bar sell signal formed. This pin bar was well defined and offered a very large risk or reward potential. Most importantly, it was in line with the daily chart time frame trend as we discussed above. This is the most powerful and best way to trade the 1 hour or 4 hour chart time frame. In the chart below, we are looking at the daily AUD/USD chart. Basically, we just want to analyze what is happening on the daily chart before we look to the 4 hour for any potential setups. From looking at this chart, a few things are apparent. A strong burst of bullish momentum occurred, and this basically initiated a new uptrend, which would have been obvious to you after the strong bullish surge and the subsequent buoyancy of the market above the key support through about 0.8920. There was a key support level through 0.8920 or 0.8900 area, and a bullish pin bar formed rejecting this level. In the next chart below, we can see that just prior to the daily chart bullish pin bar discussed above, a strong 4-hour chart pin bar formed from the same key support level. In this way, the 4-hour or 1-hour chart can lead the daily chart time frame and provide early signals. Note the second pin bar on the 4-hour chart. This was also in line with daily chart uptrend. The next example is what I would consider an ideal example of how to trade the intraday charts with the daily chart trend. Note, in the daily USD JPY chart below, we had a clear and obvious uptrend underway. The 8/21-day EMAs were crossed up and moving higher, and the market was clearly making higher highs and higher lows. This was a nice consistent uptrend. As the market retraces back to the EMAs, we want to take notice. We can watch for daily chart buy signals at the 8/21-day EMA layer, or we can drill down to the 4-hour and 1-hour at that time and look for signals there. This is how you trade in line with the daily chart trend from value or support, as you learned in the trend chapter. If it was a downtrend, then value would just mean we are looking to trade from resistance instead of support. Now, look at the 1-hour chart below for an ideal 1-hour price action buy signal in line with the higher time frame daily chart uptrend. You would have been able to get a nice tight stop loss on this 1-hour pin bar or fakie setup, and the upside potential was very large because you had the weight of the daily chart trend behind you. Getting on an obvious trade like this and letting it run a bit as the trend unfolds is how you can make a lot of money in the market. Trading intraday charts from key daily chart levels. Aside from trading intraday price action signals in line with the daily chart trend, the next best way to trade them is from key daily chart levels of support or resistance. Thus, the first thing we want to do is identify key levels of daily chart support or resistance. Once you've identified the key daily chart levels of support or resistance, as on the chart below, you can drill down to the 4-hour or 1-hour and watch for price action signals forming near those levels. Note the long-tailed pin bar reversal that formed on the 4-hour chart below. This pin bar formed at the key daily chart resistance level shown on the previous chart above. Long-tailed pin bars on the 4-hour or 1-hour chart are the best types of intraday pin bars to trade. The long tail gives you some extra assurance on the trade, since it is an intraday trade and thus riskier than a daily chart trade. This is the proper way to attempt trading an intraday chart against the current daily chart trend, looking for an obvious 4-hour or 1-hour price action signal at a key daily chart level. Here's another example of trading the intraday charts from a key daily level. Note, in the daily chart below, the key level of support through 0.8190 in the NZD USD. The market was basically range-bound at this point or moving sideways. In these situations we can watch for price action entry signals from the key levels of the trading range, and in this case it was the support of the range. The 1-hour chart below provided us with a nice long-tailed pin bar buy signal from the key daily chart support level mentioned above, through 0.8190. I hope at this point, you are starting to see how to trade intraday charts in line with the daily chart. Remember, the intraday trade should make sense in the context of the daily chart. Conclusion. Thus, when trading the 1 hour or 4 hour time frame, we want to refer up to the daily chart to make sure our intraday trade makes sense with what the daily chart is doing. This is the most important key to intraday trading and something many traders do not do. Do not become overly focused on the intraday charts. Make sure you start out by seeing what's happening on the daily chart, and then letting that guide your decision-making process on the 4 hour or 1 hour chart, as we discussed and showed above in the examples. Most of my trades are on the daily and 4 hour charts, with far fewer being on the 1 hour. I strongly recommend you spend most of your time analyzing and trading on the daily and 4 hour chart time frame. If you happen to see a good 1 hour signal that fits in the context of the daily chart conditions, then it's all good. But don't go digging for a 1 hour chart signal if there are no obvious ones jumping out at you, because this is a one-way ticket to over-trading land, and you don't want to travel there. Our next chapter will be trading with Confluence.